Okay, so welcome everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Corey Walmsley. I'm the CEO of Aurora Borealis Publishing, and this is my fabulous best-selling author, Traci Blasko. And thank you for being here with me today, Traci.
My pleasure.
We're going to be talking about her book, her author journey, all the fabulous things that come after that. And we also want to invite you to ask questions. So this is your opportunity to hop on, ask questions to a real live author and get her answers. Just drop them in the comments and we will reply as we see them. If you're watching the replay, you can do the same thing and we'll hop back on and answer them for you. So couple things about that. First of all, I'm offering some fabulous author prizes for everybody who comments, so make sure you comment and everybody gets something. I also have something coming up that is a big prize that one lucky person will get a fabulous author prize, and we're going to be doing that drawing later this month, so you want to get in for that. And I'm going to let Traci announce she's offering something fabulous too.
Yes, I would love to offer 2 signed copies of my book, Becoming Boldly Joyful, more of a workbook, I guess you would say, to, I guess, the first 2 people who ask questions.
Sounds good. So make sure you get your questions in. This book is it is not only a gorgeous piece to look at, it is also so amazing to read through and so impactful. Traci's writing is just the kind of writing that you want to read to be uplifted and feel more of your own power. So you definitely want to get in on that. So I want to start out by letting Traci introduce herself and talk a little bit about her book.
Well, thank you, Corey, and thanks for having me today. As Corey said, my name is Traci Blasko, and as many of us, I've been involved in a lot of different things along my journey. Always in the back of my mind was that I knew I wanted to write a book one day. And through the course of events, I had met Joy Buffalini, who many of us know, and that led me to being introduced to Corey. And as things were aligning, I knew that it was the time for me that I wanted to write my book. I went to one of Corey's workshops, and then I did work with her as my coach to write the book, which I highly recommend. It just made everything so much better. And through Corey's guidance, like before I left that workshop, I knew my chapters and almost the names of them and everything. Like everything just started falling into place. So that was extremely helpful. And then I also used Corey as my editor, which was huge for me because, like Corey, I just felt like you got my style and you understood my voice and where I was coming from, and little pieces of humor here and there, and it was just very helpful. So I can't recommend you enough. If anybody's thinking of writing a book or currently in the midst of one, actually I'm interrupting myself, but it was a whole team, and I understand now you have that package put together, so that's even more exciting. I can't wait to write my next book.
Yes, yeah, we do have a whole team now, and we're officially a hybrid publisher, Aurora Borealis. So we have people who do the editing process. We have some writers on the team now who can help out with bits and pieces of the author stuff. So I'm not going to talk a lot about that today, but one of the things I wanted to talk about, Traci, is, you said you've had that in the back of your mind. You had it in the back of your mind for a long time that you wanted to write a book. What was that final nudge to like, yes, I'm going to get it done now? What was that like?
It feels like it's, in that moment you're deciding it's time, I want to write a book. But I think for many of us, it's a lifetime of preparing for it, right? Because you have to have something to write about. So we have to have experiences, or, sometimes the timing isn't right. So even if for many years I thought I wanted to write a book, but it just wasn't happening. And now I'm glad I didn't write a book, because I have so much more information and experiences that I could put into this book when the timing was right. So for me, it was a process. It's actually what led me to write this book was what I was going through in my own life, which many of us go through. We start experiencing overwhelm or maybe grief or stress or whatever it might be. And it takes us away from our joy. And I had always lived a life from a place of joy. I didn't even realize I had veered so far off course until I started realizing I was just feeling numb, like I wasn't feeling things down deep like I used to. And it was that realization that prompted me to say, I am going to boldly claim my joy again. So whether you are claiming your joy for the first time or reclaiming it, if it's time, like that is, you are the person that I wrote this book for, because all the things in it helped me get back to a sense of joy. And it started then prompting me to understand the importance of living in awareness. So right now, everybody who's listening to this, we're understanding that the life we're experiencing in this moment is the result of choices that we've made, either consciously or unconsciously. Meaning allowing other people to make choices for us, or maybe just not thinking in awareness and going along with the flow of what other people's choices are. So once I started realizing that, it really prompted me to start making some changes. My husband and I had talked about moving to North Carolina for years and years. And I finally said, you know what, things have aligned for us. It's time, let's do it. And probably within a year, we were on our way to North Carolina. So we moved from Ohio, where both of us were born and raised, and all of our family was there. And we moved to North Carolina, and that in itself has opened up new opportunities. We now are starting a family business. Our kids moved here as well. Obviously, they're grown. And it's not so much, I know we're going to get into this, I think, Corey, about what happened after I wrote the book. But for me, writing the book and doing the things that are in the book led to my life and my family's life evolving in a much more awareness and intentional way of creating a life that we really love.
Yeah. So something that I've noticed a lot with authors is that very same process where you come to a realization and then you know that you need to make this change. Whether it is actually making the change while you're writing the book, or if you hit that, you make the change, and then later you go, you know what, other people need this too. So a lot of authors end up doing what you did and writing the book that you really needed at that time in your life. And I think it gives, a much greater realization of what you were doing, because some of that stuff might have been, not intentional, or it might have been subconscious that you were just like, oh, okay, I need to journal more, for example. And then you realize later, hey, this really helped. And so it ends up going in the book. And I love that authors are doing that, where they say, you know what, I've been through this process and I'm going to write the book that I needed to go through. Did you want to talk about that?
Well, I think just to kind of expand upon that a lot of those tools that you're mentioning, that I used for myself, like they're not just suggestions, like I did them and it really helped me. It helped me become much more aware of, I don't know, I think sometimes like responsibilities. Sometimes we get overwhelmed or overburdened by our responsibilities, as an example. So I started doing work to expand my mind to allow different perspectives on things. And in that journey, I started realizing, my responsibilities are really little gifts, because they're telling me they're the results of my choices. So if you hate to do laundry, and we've heard this analogy before, instead of hating to do laundry, think about, be thankful for the clothes, be thankful for the people that wear the clothes, be thankful for the home that you have to be able to put the clothes away in, just kind of turning the flashlight, if you will, off of the negative side of things and moving it over to the positive side of things, because everything has a positive. There can't be a negative without a positive. So it was that shift in perspective that really kind of opened my mind to other things. So I started, my husband and I sat down and we're like, let's list our responsibilities. If we don't like it, if it's a burden for us, then what are our choices? We can either hire it out and that helps somebody else,
Mhm.
We can eliminate it if appropriate, or we can change our mind about it and start embracing it as a gift rather than a burden.
I love that. That very like conscious movement toward the life that you want to live and toward more joy. And I love that it brought you to sunny North Carolina. I'm enjoying all the sunshine
You.
and everything. It's a little gray here today.
Yes, me too.
Yeah.
As I said, it was a dream of ours, so we made
Yeah.
it happen.
That's awesome. And you know, we I don't remember the year we published this. Was it last
It was
spring?
last
It
year.
was last spring.
It was
Yeah.
it
It
was
feels
the
like a
month
lot of
of the
years.
pandemic when everything shut down.
Yeah, it feels like it was a long time ago, but it was
I
1 year
know.
ago.
I know.
Yeah, and we published this a year ago, and since then, you know, the wheels have been turning, and you know, more things have been on the horizon for you. So, tell me about some of the doors that have opened since you wrote the book.
Right. So I know, um, so I think for me, it's a little bit different than some people who write books because I wasn't doing it intentionally for a business development necessarily to come after it. Not saying that it's not happening, but my intent was this helped me. And I just want that information out there for people who might be struggling too. I want them to have a guide, you know, that some of it will resonate, some of it won't, but there's information in there that can be very helpful.
Mhm.
And so by doing the steps that are in the book, it has kind of led to our life evolving. Some of it I've already shared, but we're now starting a family business with our kids. We're starting a kind of a vendor fair craft show artisan market, if you will. So we bought property. We have 73 acres. We're developing it. It was timbered. So it was left kind of a mess actually, which is kind of sad to see, but we're reclaiming the land. We're doing some excavation and turning it into this beautiful piece of property so people can come and you know, just celebrating the arts and the skills that people have and bringing community together. And that's just huge for us. So that's been very exciting. And we're going to have our first event in the fall of this year in October. We'll have one in
Okay,
October,
great.
one in November. But that's also given me an outlet. One of the things, and if I can kind of go back a little bit, like you were saying, when I was coming to this realization that I was kind of living in this zone of numbness, my life was good.
Mhm.
If somebody would have looked at my life from the outside, they would think like, what, you have nothing to complain about. I mean, sure, there were challenges and, you know, my parents were struggling at the end of their lives. And, you know, I'm not saying there weren't things,
Right.
but in general, it was a good life. It just wasn't the life that was in tune with the things that were really important for my husband and I. So it
Yeah.
also allowed me to become creative. You know, I've flirted with art my whole life, and now I have the time and am able to have a whole art room and have all of my supplies out, and it's like heaven. And this Mulberry Creek Farm, which is the name of our farm, where we're going to be doing these artisan markets, is kind of, it's all tying together, and it gives me a vehicle to be able to explore that end of things. And celebrating and supporting entrepreneurs has always been a passion of mine. We owned a salon in Ohio and worked with a number of people who, same thing, we were supporting their small business. They were independent contractors working under our umbrella. And we're doing that now with people in the arts, and just want to really be supportive and celebrate entrepreneurship because it's a magical thing.
That is. And I love that you're focusing on artists and artisans because I know sometimes it's like art is just there and you know we appreciate it and we love having it, but I don't think there's enough focus on like really supporting people who are the creators out there.
Right.
So I love that your book has led you to that spot. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
I know I love painting too, so I'm always like, ooh.
Yeah.
um, yeah, I got like really excited about that stuff when you were talking about it before. Yeah, and you know, as an artist yourself, like I love that you were able to combine your love for art and your love for writing in your book. Would you mind flipping open the journal and just kind of
Oh, sure.
showing a few pages out of there? Um, so I know a lot of times people who are creatives are multi-talented. You know, if you like to sing, you like to dance, you like to write, you like to paint. And Traci found the most beautiful way to combine her art with her writing. So she's showing off some of these beautiful pictures. Um, our cover designer did the layout on this stuff so she could incorporate really high quality images of the art in there. That's just gorgeous.
Which, if I can share a quick story about that,
Yeah.
For anybody else who might have a similar experience, I have been waiting years, I mean, decades, to be able to have time and space to create art.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like I could not have been more excited about it. And I got all my art supplies out that have been, in drawers for years, and I created a whole room for it and everything. And I went in and I didn't know what to do. I was completely overwhelmed by it. I tried a couple different things. It was really such a strange experience because I was getting really frustrated. Every time I went in my art room, I was frustrated. And I'm like, really? I waited all these years and it's like, it's not there. But what I learned was I needed to be patient with myself because it had been a long time. So I started exploring. I started watching some YouTube videos of different types of medium. I tried working with watercolor and acrylics and this and that, and nothing was clicking until I found mixed media, which is just a combination of them all. And that was like, oh my gosh. So if you feel like your soul is craving something and you feel like you're getting close and nothing's clicking, don't give up because you're close. Keep going, keep trying different things.
There's a lot there that I wanted to talk about too, but I did want to say to anybody who's watching, I know we haven't mentioned it recently. We mentioned it right at the beginning. If you have questions, drop them in the comments because we want to answer them. We want to, give you some inspiration and some insight into what it's like to be an author. And there are fabulous author prizes. And Traci is also offering a copy of her book to the first 2 people who ask questions. So make sure you drop your questions in the comments. So in response to what Traci was saying, there's a lot going on in my head right now. So as far as like, when you come in and you're talking about like trying to get back into the groove of doing art, like if you haven't been doing that for a long time, or if it's been one of those like I need the time, I need the time, I need the time, and you finally have it, sometimes it's just like I'm gonna say it from my perspective because I have 2 little kids. Like if I finally get an hour, I'm like, oh hey, I have an hour to do whatever I want. All of a sudden my brain's like, I don't know what we want to do. And it's like that whenever you've been wishing and wishing and wishing and you're like, okay, I finally have the opportunity. Sometimes you just bump into that, like, I don't know what to do. You've been wanting to go to the beach for a long time, you finally get there and you just stare at it. You don't know what to do. So you do have to give yourself that time and say, hey, what are the possibilities? Where do I need to lean in? What am I focusing on? Do I need to bring in some music? Do I need to, sip a cup of tea or whatever? What's going to get me going on my creativity? And I love that you were led to mixed media because it's not one thing. And so often, especially with writers, we feel like if it's a new thing, like when I bring in my authors, I'm rewinding and like going all over the place here, but when I bring in a new author, a lot of times they'll feel like they have to follow this rigid set of rules. And really it's, there are some guidelines. It's like bowling, like where when you're bowling with little kids and you've got the little blow up gutter things, there are some guidelines. You need to stick in the middle of the lane somewhere, but as long as you get to the end of the lane, doesn't matter how you got there. And for mixed media, it's the same thing. You're bringing in other elements. I know when I paint, I like to do paint, and then I also will come in and do some shading or other things with like colored pencil, or I'll put some jewels on my paintings. So it's not just that I have to do watercolor. It's, whatever I'm feeling. And it's the same way with writing your book. Like, do what you feel, do what you know is right. And if someone's sitting there going, oh, hey, you need to have 5 sentences in this paragraph, you can go, no, it really feels good with just this one. I think this one is punchy and it needs to stand out. So
Mhm.
that was my whole, I think that was everything I was thinking about.
Well, and to expand upon that, when I was writing my book,
Mhm.
so for anybody who is currently writing a book or thinking about it, like I sat down to write it and the same thing happened. I'm like, well, okay, I have my chapter names, but now I need all the content. So I would go in my studio and I would sit down, like, have my cup of whatever, and I'm ready to write. And okay, come on, I'm ready. And nothing. And then I started going outside and sitting on our deck and doing it. And it was like a download.
Mhm.
So some of it is in your environment too.
Yeah.
Like allow yourself to try different places, or maybe go to a park or go to a coffee shop, or,
Mhm.
somewhere that it inspires you and you're not even sure why. But I wrote almost my whole book sitting outside because
Yeah.
it just felt more, it flowed more easily
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah. And if it works, it works.
Right.
Um, so we do have a question. I'm not sure if it's Rihanna or Rena. She asked, how did you find the time and space to write? So I think you kind of answered the space question.
Yes. So the space, I have a dedicated space now, but I don't use it a lot. I go outside and do it. So
Yeah.
the time, I know everybody has a different set of circumstances. So it did not work for me necessarily to set aside hours, because it's the creative gene in us that it's hard to flip that on and flip that off. But
Mhm.
I did find that I started putting like blocks of time. So like I would say on, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in the mornings, I wouldn't schedule anything else. And
Mhm.
then I would allow myself to be thinking about it. And then when I felt like I was ready, I'd go sit down with my laptop, or sometimes I would just do with a notebook too,
Mhm.
because I like to actually write.
Yeah.
So sometimes I would do that. So, I think that that can be challenging, but I do believe all things are possible. And if you have faith and you have belief in yourself and you're willing to take action, it's about setting boundaries. And to me, my old thought perspective was, when you set boundaries, it's limiting. I
Mhm.
didn't like boundaries. I didn't like the idea of boundaries. But
Mhm.
now I understand it's part of the creative process. You have to create boundaries in order to create.
Yeah.
Because if we never set boundaries, then it's harder for things to actually manifest, because we don't have focused time and energy on them. So boundaries became a
Yeah.
good word instead of a bad word.
Yeah. Yeah. I
That
like that.
perspective.
I like that perspective of it. That's good. Um, okay. Well, we don't have any other questions, so I wanted to go ahead and wrap up. Did you want to message Rihanna? I'm not sure how you say your name. Traci, did you just want to message her and get her information so you can send
Sure,
her a
I
book?
can do that from the. Mhm.
Okay, awesome. And you
Absolutely.
will love the
Thank
book.
you. Yeah. And I don't know if you want to continue that for anybody that watches the recording. I'm happy to send another one out if you haven't read
Yeah, so we've got one left. So anybody else who asks a question, first question gets a copy of Traci's book, Becoming Boldly Joyful.
it.
Um, Yay. So just to wrap it up, let's say somebody's been thinking on a book for a long time and they're not quite sure where to start. What advice would you give them?
Call Corey, email Corey. Honestly, that workshop that I went to, you, I don't even remember specifically all the things you were saying, but it was guiding me to think more logically about what I wanted to put down. Because I think sometimes creatives, we have a hard time. Like we have a lot going on in our heads, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to focus that. So I would say hire a coach. Would definitely, don't be afraid to. I would get pieces of blank white paper and just write all my ideas down, and then see if there was a pattern in there somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. And I think I don't know if we did this at the workshop, but we probably did, where we had Post-it notes and we arranged them on a poster board.
Yep, I still
Yeah.
have my Post-it notes from there.
Oh, really?
Yep. Which led to this.
Yeah. Cool. Yay. The
Yeah.
process works. All right. Well, thank you, Traci, for joining me this morning. And thank you for everybody who watched and is watching the replay. Again, if you have questions or comments, put them below. We will get back to you. all questions get in for an author prize, and you also get a chance at a big author prize. So everybody gets something. So make sure you ask. And thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Traci, and we'll see you again.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.